few days ago, these new tools arrived in the post from toolmaker and potter Sophisticated Pagan, all the way from Canada. You can find a link to his page in the description of this video. By now you'll know that I love using tungsten carbide tools for trimming, but I think it's also important to realise that for me, tungsten carbide blades don't just replace the steel swords. In fact, I generally use both in tandem. Tungsten carbide is generally for removing mass, and the steel ones are for burnishing and finishing. I don't expect the tungsten carbide to be able to do everything. Pagan offers something that not really anybody else does, and that's completely custom blades and shapes. The entire tool is made by hand and the build quality is quite unlike anything else I've seen before. And they're also ludicrously sharp, which can make them a bit of a challenge to work with using stoneware initially, especially if they're grogged, as the blade will want to bounce around and chatter. But this does lessen with use, and they certainly become more manageable. But you also have to learn how to use them in a different way as compared to more conventional loop steel tools, which don't really chatter at all. I particularly like this hook tool for removing mass, and that's typically what I use the tungsten carbide tools for. They're for carving away material and creating the rough shape, which I then finish and refine with the steel tools. When trimming a smoother clay body like this porcelain, less issues arise, and it really does feel like pressing a scorching hot knife through butter. In fact, it takes getting used to the initial bite these have. As they're so sharp, if you aren't fully in control, it can be relatively easy for the tool to snag, catch and be drawn around by the spinning clay, which means they tend to be tools, I think at least, for potters who've had some trimming experience. I couldn't comfortably hand one of these to a beginner. Not only would they be quite likely to ruin the pot they're making, but tungsten carbide is also exceedingly fragile, and if dropped or misused, the blades can be easily damaged. Also, when they're this sharp, you could easily injure yourself too. The analogy that I always use is that you wouldn't teach someone learning to drive in a souped-up sports car. It takes time and understanding of the fundamentals before you can get to that point. And if you'd like to watch a much longer 20-minute version of this video that goes into far more detail, I've also left more information about that in this video's description. Lastly, a huge thank you to Pagan for sending these to me, together with a whole other box of assorted gifts. He's the kind of person who sees things that people are struggling with and figures out and finds ways to fix them.